Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Olympus Astrology, and we are going to talk today about the King's Coronation, which I know happened a long time ago now, 6 months or something, 7 months. So I am way, way, way behind, but I do want to give my 2 cents on this coronation because it's very, very interesting, and I will definitely talk about this on my Patreon because it's a much bigger topic, looking at these lunar eclipses and like whether you should even use them in astrology. So I will be doing that on my Patreon. The link will be in the description if you want to learn these ancient secrets, change your life, and know your destiny. That's how I'm doing it. So here is the chart of the King's Coronation. We have it, or I have it, as being 11 a.m. or beginning at 11 a.m. Perhaps it was not the ceremony, but some kind of preparation was begun at 10:10 or something, so maybe an hour before. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what that looks like starting at 11, which was when the official ceremony of the coronation began in earnest. So, which I think is the right one to look at. So we have here the moon at the end of Libra, right after its full period. You see the sun up here in Aries and the moon in opposition. So this is like the day after he was born, the day after the lunar eclipse occurred. And you can see the south node. You know it's an eclipse because the south node is nearby. So it was interesting. I was reading one of the ancient books a few days ago, and it was talking about eclipses, which is very, very rare. I don't know almost any areas where they actually mention anything about eclipses. So there was just this one line, and it said that the eclipse is good for evil doing, and it hinders everything. So I don't know what's going on. I think probably the king is a bit of a stooge, you know. He's put up by someone as a mask, or by some people as a puppet, as usual. And I'm going, just so you guys know, I'm breaking like 6 laws of being an astrologer doing this. You're not meant to say anything about the king. You're not meant to read his chart. You're not meant to read his future. You're not meant to do anything at all about the king. So I'm breaking a lot of rules here. I don't know. I think times have changed. Yes, I still live in a monarchy. My sovereign is the king because I live in Australia. So he's actually literally my king. Not that I have much of that sentiment. But yes, so whatever. Let's just say he's a puppet. Certainly if he doesn't have his own astrologer. If he had his own astrologer who was looking out for his own interests, they wouldn't use this as a coronation time. This is horrendous. Horrendous is going a bit far, but an eclipse is generally horrendous because, as you said, either evil doing or it will destroy everything you do. And that's because the moon is fortune, and under the eclipse, fortune is swallowed. So, or luck, fortuna, luck and fortune. What is interesting, however, is this grand trine that they've chosen with Venus, Mars, Saturn, and the moon. And then, of course, it's kind of like a big, what is this shape? Like a fan or a windmill with the sun and Mercury and Jupiter all up here. And then this big grand trine, this big triangle with Mars, Mercury, Moon, and Saturn. It's really a very, very, very peculiar kind of chart, actually. I don't have any super strong conclusions. As I said, the eclipses are just a big mystery to pretty much anybody who studies astrology earnestly. The eclipses are dark. That's the main thing. Eclipses are dark. You don't want to do something under an eclipse. Anywhere an eclipse happens, that image will die. So this is what's so weird. The lunar eclipse happens in the constellation called the Crown. The Crown. I don't know if my mic picked that up. The constellation called the Crown is where the eclipse happened. So on the day of the coronation, there is a lunar eclipse in the constellation of the Crown. That is just so weird. I don't know why anybody in their right mind would would do something on that day, especially a royal, especially a noble. I mean, perhaps somebody setting him up, wants him to die quickly, wants the reign to end quickly, and wants to take over. That's possible. Which that probably will be the case. I mean, he's pretty old, right? So, but this grand trine is interesting because it's very powerful. That being said, it's Mars and Saturn. So it's like a grand trine, which is powerful. Like, and the grand trine with Mars and Saturn is good, but it's not great. It's kind of like, it's like, yeah, you do all right, but you don't do much. It's good for steadiness, for stability, for sort of things going at an even kind of rate. There's no big success or big failure or anything like that. So all in all, an extremely peculiar chart. I will talk more about it on my Patreon because there is other stuff like the invisible Jupiter, which is a bit, you can't quite see it on this chart here, but it's up on the MC there with Mercury and the Sun, obviously opposite the Moon. So that's something. Perhaps, actually, I need to double check this whole thing and see when does Jupiter appear, because maybe they were doing it under a lunar eclipse when Jupiter was in morning first, which is a very lucky, very powerful time. Maybe some of these Satanist astrologers will watch my video and they'll go, haha, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We know these texts better than he does. Well, we'll see. Perhaps you do. They certainly have access to more than me. But this is really interesting. There's the invisible Jupiter. Its theme is the desire for power and hierarchical struggles. So if I'm looking at the chart, very, very likely that this whole thing was a setup. This whole thing was put out, he is being set up, the king, that is, because the coronation is under an eclipse with a omen of hierarchical struggle. The trine of Mars and Saturn, the trine of Mars on the Moon is nice, and this, obviously the sextile with the Sun. I think probably they started it when Mars was rising. That would make more sense to me. So probably that 10 a.m. time is more accurate now that I think about it, because Mars was on the ascendant. Now, they often do this. Politicians often put Mars on the ascendant. The Founding Fathers did it. And they do that when they want to improve their military power. They do that when they want the army to be strong. They want a powerful weapons, tanks, missiles, airplanes, guns, all this stuff. They want power, military might. So that is really quite fascinating, actually. So probably I'll look at in my Patreon video, I'll have a look at the 10 a.m. time, which I think is the right one. Because that will really reveal a lot, and the Moon will be closer to the IC, and Speaker will be on the IC, which means that there was some hidden esoteric agenda behind the entire affair. So anyway, this is the whole thing's such a mind fuck to me. It's such a weird chart, a weird choice, a weird event. And they're weird people. Those guys at the top are usually really weird people. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, as I've been saying, please check out my Patreon. That supports me a lot. Give me a like, because that's what everybody says these days. And supposedly that helps me too. But yeah, definitely check out my Patreon. If you're somebody who's looking for this ancient science and you just want to know a style of astrology that is actually going to give you real predictions and has a really logical, clear foundation. I spent my whole early years of spiritual awakening searching for some clairvoyancy that would help me see things with certainty, with clarity, and that's not the best way to start out, to be honest. You need to start out with your feet on the path of light, and I had to go through suffering because of this mistake that I made early on, which is fine. But now that I have done it properly and gone through it, and then I was granted access to this science. And it's the one thing that I have found that I know is true, is accurate, is clear, and it has a reference to the intellectual realm, which is more solid and can be grabbed. You can understand it. You can see the future with your intellect. You just have to have the right teacher. And if that's you, then I definitely am the right teacher. So check out my Patreon, as I've been saying. I'll keep banging on about this for another 5 minutes. No, I won't. God bless you, my brothers and sisters. I really hope you enjoyed this video. May the goddess of love walk with you always, and I will see you in the next one.